In this economics lesson, I'm going to try to be very brief. It's not always easy. Um, King Solomon stated, and this is thousands of years ago, not sure how many thousands, but over 2,000, probably more like about 4,000 years ago. He stated, and it's written in one of his books, Proverbs or Ecclesiastes or Song of Songs, and he states that money is the answer to everything. And King Solomon is said by many to be the wisest man that ever lived. I dispute that with the wisdom of Jesus coming later. I believe Jesus' wisdom far exceeded that of Solomon. But what King Solomon was saying was true in a great degree, in a very pragmatic, practical sense. What he said was true, and it's relevant today. And to say money is the answer to everything, he understood that, you know, basically, if you have money, you don't have to worry about anything. Nothing. You can have servants, and you can have them take care of you, and you can get as much of any commodity as you want, and so in that sense, in a very practical sense, it was the answer to everything, and today it's still the same way. And I really don't believe at all that King Solomon was condoning. He wasn't justifying the fact that money is the answer to everything, but he stated a truth. And we see that same thing today in our society. And people talk about the division in philosophies between conservatives and liberals, but today the labels are pure rhetoric. At one time in America, in our brief history, the conservatives were the Democrats, and the liberals were the Republicans. I mean, how many liberals of today think of Thomas Jefferson as a liberal? But he's a well-known classic liberal, and when you look into it. But I'm just stating how things are really twisted in the sense that we're manipulated. Our reality is constantly being manufactured by forces beyond our control. And these are the people that basically run the world. If you own the money supply, if this power, this sorcery-like power, then you really control the planet. If you control the people, you control the planet. And we've got the same thing today. And what I want to wake a lot of people up to is that at this point in history, it's utterly and absolutely inexcusable. We all must see how ridiculous it is that humanity's had thousands of years to get their act together. And this is where we are at this point in history, okay? This is September 15th, 2012. How could it be that we have not only not made progress, but we've had anti-progress? Things are worse today than they ever were before in history. When you look at our state of industrialization, our state of technology, the state-of-the-art equipment and tools, implements that we have out there, that anybody on earth is suffering in austerity is absurd. It's absolutely the most evil, vile thing that I can think of. This is what makes me absolutely miserable. I can't enjoy my life while others suffer needlessly. That's why I'm such a proponent of the downtrodden, of the misfits, of the disheartened, the disenfranchised out there, the people that don't fit into the scene, okay? Because I see them as my brothers and sisters. I see them as Jesus, and I was told that I should do that. And so I care about people. And it all comes down to money. It all comes down to money. Okay? I could sum up the Bible in just one thing Jesus said. Okay? He said this. He said, if you just love God above all else, that is the first commandment. And then love one another as you love yourself. In other words, treat others the way you want to be treated. We could get along just fine. We would please God, and therefore we would find true happiness. And after all, if it's not about true happiness, what's it all about? And what is happiness comprised of? A lot of facets. And among them is the sense of security. We all must feel secure. Okay? We've got enough to deal with just from the natural reality of what we're born into on this very dangerous planet. But we don't need an imposed, unnecessary suffering through this vehicle called money. Okay? Which has been a tool for misery through the ages. All the wars, most of the crime, all of the stuff can be traced back to power. And power is defined in this world with money. It's all very sordid. It really is. But, all the employers out there should be treating their employees the way they want to be treated. Okay, if we did that, okay, we could find a balance. If we could really just do it, if we could really just treat each other in our finances the way we want to be treated. We've got to share. If we could share, we'd find out we all have plenty. The only justifiable reason I can see from withholding anything from others, from the poor, is if they were lazy, if they wouldn't work. Okay? Not that we're telling you you have to go to work. There's just not enough work. And this is a result of industrialization. This is what happens. The manpower isn't needed. So let's face the reality. We've got to look at the cost of living and the interaction between wages. We can't have one segment of society always benefiting when prices go up and the other segment always getting hurt. How long can that go on? But think of the end. Think of the end from the beginning. You can see where that's headed. Where is it always headed in any culture? Do you really want a third world country in America? I mean, why should we accept that? Okay? People don't stop going to work when they're secure, when they have a sense of prosperity and they feel successful in whatever they do, in whatever amount of work they're needed to contribute to society. Okay? Whatever that is, all of us deserve to share in the wealth of the planet. It's a birthright. It's not because I say so, because I'm a socialist or a communist or some other label you might want to come up with. No, I'm actually a free market guy. But the truth is, if we had a truly free market, things would not be like this. We would not have this great disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And I'm going to read an excerpt now from Adam Smith where he corroborates what I'm saying here. So reading from chapter 8 of The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, of the wages of labor. The produce of labor constitutes the natural recompense or wages of labor. In that original state of things, which precedes both the appropriation of land and the accumulation of stock, the whole produce of labor belongs to the laborer. He has neither landlord nor master to share with him. Had this state continued, the wages of labor would have augmented with all those improvements in its particular powers to which the division of labor gives occasion. All things would gradually have become cheaper. They would have been produced by a smaller quantity of labor, and as the commodities produced by equal quantities of labor would naturally, in this state of things, be exchanged for one another. They would have been purchased likewise with the produce of a smaller quantity. This is the natural market. And when you hear about economists talk about things finding their natural price, In a true free market economy, where there's constantly progress in technologies, making work easier and making the need for labor less, okay, that's what happens. And I'll give a perfect example is the VCR. In the 1980s, it was $600. I talked to people who paid over $1,000. 1980s money. 2012, you can buy a VCR DVD combo for less than $100. This is what happens in a true free market supply and demand economy. Then you would say, well, what happened with housing and food and fuel? Well, you don't have a free market there. You've got price fixing, you've got collusion, you've got collaboration. It's just collaborators, people that have an interest in those things. They have an interest in having the prices as high as possible. And allowed to manipulate markets and commit price fixing fraud, then this is what you're going to have, and this is what you do have now. And there's no checks and balances. And what I mean by that is wages have not been tied directly into the cost of living. If they had, then you'd see minimum wage rising proportionately to your cost of living to preserve that one figure that the best and brightest economists came up with that afforded everybody to live a middle-class life. That would have kept up with the cost of living. But by doing what they've done and not having to be accountable by raising the wages of labor to compensate for the rising cost of living, they found a way to steal the wealth more and more and create this disparity between the haves and have-nots. And it's a horrible state of things. And it's at this point in history, I will reiterate, is it's less excusable now than ever before. Okay, we're really pissing off the benevolent spirit. Okay, even if you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, we're pissing off, that sense of righteousness and justice and equity that we all have deep in our soul, that longing for. How can any of us be happy? You wonder why you're miserable? Well, it's like osmosis. It's science. You're going to get your share. I don't care how fat your portfolio is, how financially secure you think you are. You cannot enjoy it. Okay, you might believe you are, but you're not. Okay, the light within you is darkness. You can't enjoy it and disconcern yourself with other people's hardship. You have to be willing to carry the same load as your brothers and sisters. You have to see what this is all about. It's not because these are bad people, morally deficient when you're poor. It's not that you're lazy. Okay, this is all about oppression on a mass scale. And it's horrendous. And I don't want this to lead to a bloody revolution. But I know this much, is that people all around the world are sick and tired of being oppressed. This is not about religion or any other made-up differences that humanity has. Okay, that's all propaganda. Okay, we've got to see clearly. This is humanity versus inhumanity. Okay, we've got the problem is establishmentarian. This current establishment is completely corrupt, hopelessly corrupt. We need an absolute reset of reality here. And it all comes down to dollars and cents. It all comes down to sharing the wealth of this planet and letting everybody live with a sense of security. Okay, let everybody live with dignity. That's what it all comes down to. And we can do it. Don't believe the lie. And the lie is that humanity is incapable of getting along and living together in peace and tranquility and harmony with one another. We do have it within us, okay? And it's not even that hard to imagine that you do.